What would you sacrifice to escape death? Your wealth? Your kingdom? Even your soul? For Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, death was not an ending. It was an enemy he believed he could outwit. He built walls of stone, armies of clay. He even drank elixirs promising eternal youth. And yet, those very potions may have killed him. This is the story of one man's obsession and how the quest for eternal life became his fatal mistake. But who was this man who believed he could command not only earth, but heaven itself? To understand, we must go back to the very beginning, to the boy who would become the first emperor. Born in 259 BCE as Ying Zheng, he was heir to the throne of the small and rugged state of Qin. At that time, China was torn apart by the Warring States period. 7 kingdoms locked in endless brutal war. The Qin were seen as outsiders, rough and uncultured. But they were also disciplined, with harsh laws and relentless armies. By the age of 13, Ying Zheng was king. By 22, he had seized full control. And by 39, he had achieved the unthinkable. He crushed all rival states and proclaimed himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He standardized weights and measures, unified currency, even imposed a single written script across the land. For the first time in history, a vast Chinese empire stood united. But unity came at a terrible cost. Qin Shi Huang ruled with absolute power. He burned books that contradicted his vision. He buried scholars alive. And he demanded loyalty through fear, not respect. To his people, he was both a visionary and a tyrant. Qin Shi Huang believed his empire would last for 10,000 generations. To protect it, he turned to projects of unimaginable scale. He ordered the construction of massive fortifications, the earliest version of what would one day become the Great Wall of China. Hundreds of thousands of laborers were forced into service. Many died, their bodies entombed within the very stones they laid. And underground, he prepared for eternity. At Xi'an, he commissioned a vast necropolis guarded by the Terracotta Army. More than 8,000 clay soldiers, each with unique faces, standing in perfect military formation. These warriors once carried real bronze weapons, sharp and deadly. Their armor, their hairstyles, even their ranks were carefully crafted. This was not mere art. It was a gamble. Qin believed that if death could not be avoided, then his afterlife would mirror his empire. But for the emperor, monuments and armies were not enough. He did not only want to rule after death, he wanted to rule forever. China's ancient traditions were rich with legends of immortals who lived on sacred islands in the Eastern Sea. Qin Shi Huang filled his court with alchemists, magicians, and mystics. They promised him that eternal life could be found if he had the courage and the wealth to pursue it. He sent expeditions in search of the mythical isles of the Immortals, Penglai, Fangzhang, and Yingzhou. One magician, Xu Fu, was given ships filled with 3,000 young men and women, along with vast treasures to bring back the elixir of life. He never returned. Some say he discovered new lands, perhaps even Japan, and never looked back. But the emperor's greatest gamble was with alchemy. He consumed potions of jade, gold, and mercury. In ancient thought, mercury was mysterious, a metal that was liquid, shining, and seemingly incorruptible. To Qin, it must have seemed divine, but in reality, it was poison. Mercury damages the brain and body. It brings tremors, paranoia, and madness. Ancient historians wrote that in his final years, Qin Shi Huang became increasingly erratic, fearful of assassins, and obsessed with omens. Ironically, in chasing immortality, he may have hastened his death. In 210 BCE, While on a tour of his empire to seek more magical secrets, Qin Shi Huang collapsed. The son of heaven, the man who dreamed of living forever, was dead at the age of 49. But his death was hidden. His officials feared chaos if word spread too soon. They forged letters in his name. They placed his body in a wagon filled with rotting fish to mask the smell. When his corpse was finally returned to the capital, it was entombed in the vast necropolis at Xi'an. Ancient historian Sima Qian describes a palace buried beneath the earth, with rivers of liquid mercury flowing through it and a ceiling painted with the stars. Deadly crossbows were rigged to fire upon intruders. Even today, modern surveys have found unusually high levels of mercury in the soil near the tomb. But it has never been opened, out of respect or out of fear. Qin Shi Huang's dream of immortality died with him, but his tomb endures as one of the greatest unopened mysteries of the ancient world. Qin Shi Huang was the man who united China, the builder of walls, the commander of clay armies, the dreamer of impossible dreams. He tried to bend heaven itself to his will, and for a time it seemed he might succeed. But in the end, even the first emperor of China could not escape the fate that claims us all. Yet his story still resonates. From emperors to pharaohs, from medieval alchemists to modern billionaires chasing longevity, the quest to defeat death never truly ends. And so, we are left with the question that haunted Qin Shi Huang. If you could live forever, what would you sacrifice? And so, the first emperor's dream of immortality ended not in eternal life, but in eternal silence. Yet, his legacy still shapes China and the world to this day. His empire was built not only with armies and stone, but with an idea: legalism, a harsh, unyielding philosophy that demanded obedience above all else. If you want to understand the iron law that fueled his rise, you can dive into my video on legalism, the very code that made Qin Shi Huang both feared and unstoppable. But perhaps you wish to stay within the emperor's shadow a little longer. Then join me in the First Emperor series, where we uncover the walls he built, the warriors he forged, and the mysteries that still lie buried within his tomb. Because Qin Shi Huang's story did not end with his death. In many ways, it has only just begun. Oh, if you reach this part, please consider subscribing. You are always very welcome over here.